Hello, friends. Welcome to another Silly Spooky Stories Songs episode. Tonight I am going to tell you a story called The Hitchhiker in a Red Dress. Have you seen the woman dressed all in red? Some say she's come back from the dead. If you try to give her a ride, she might bite your neck and make you die. There was a man named Carlos. He was a farmer, and he was nice and friendly and loved by everybody in the village. He lived in a small town, a small village. So it was one of those rare small towns where people helped each other and people were friendly. It was also a rather poor village, so there wasn't a lot of people who had cars. Most of them just walked to wherever they needed to go or rode their horses. Carlos had a favorite restaurant. Well, it was pretty much the only restaurant in town, but it was a good one. They had good food, they had good prices, and his friends often gathered there. In fact, the owner was one of his friends, and the owner was named Leo. Leo was telling stories again, as he often did. He started talking about the lady in red, the hitchhiker in red. Watch out for her, boys, he said. She likes to stand by the road at night and wait for men who are riding alone. And she looks beautiful. She has long dark hair. She has a pretty red dress. And when you look at her, you think she's the most beautiful woman. But she is not really a woman. She is a demon. And if you let her ride behind you on your horse, she will sink her razor teeth into your neck and she will suck your soul right out. Oh, that's ridiculous, Carlos said. Leo, you and your stories. Where do you get these stories? It's true, Leo said. I know it's true, and some of the other boys joined in. Yeah, it's true. I've heard about her. Leo said, I had a friend who rode at night on his horse. He laughed at the story. And they found him the next morning. His horse had run away, and he was laying there on the side of the road, dead. Oh, well, maybe his horse threw him, Carlos said. You know, he probably got scared of something. Horses get spooked easily. He probably just threw him and hit his head or something. And Leo said, no, he was lying there, and he had a gash in his neck that looked just like someone had sunk their teeth into his neck. Not a human, some wild beast like that demon in the red dress. I warn you, boys, don't go riding at night, and if you do, if you see her, ride right past her as fast as you can. Don't let her ride behind you. So there was some more talk, and Carlos just laughed good naturedly and left the restaurant. He went back to his farm and started doing more work. And then he was ready to just relax for the evening, like he did most evenings. He was going to eat a simple meal and just relax after a hard day's work. But his sister called and said that his brother in law was very sick, and she lived a few miles away on a farm with her husband and two children. but their farm was kind of on the border of two villages. It was still considered his village, but it was actually closer to another village. And she was kind of far out to where it was very hard for her to get to places. And especially with a sick husband and her two children to take care of, and it being so late at night, she knew that the store in Carlos's town carried the medicine that her husband would need. So she asked Carlos if he could bring it to her, and she would pay him when he got there, and she would give him a hot meal. You don't have to worry about paying me, sister. I will take that hot meal, but I will get the medicine. It doesn't cost very much, and I will bring it to you. So, like a good brother and a good friend, that is what he did. It was a rather cold night, so he had a thick coat on, and he pulled it up around his neck. He got on his horse and he began to ride toward his sister's farm. Sure enough, as he was riding, at first there was nothing, nobody. It was a deserted road, just as he had expected. But then there was a woman, a woman in a red dress with long dark hair standing on the road. He completely forgot the warning from Leo and all the stories he had heard that day. She looked so beautiful and so lonely. Her dark hair was blowing softly in the wind, and she had such a pretty red dress on, and her eyes were big and dark. They looked like beautiful pools that he could just get lost in. He could not look away from her face. He stopped his horse beside her. Do you need some help? Yes, she said. I need a ride into the next village. Can I ride with you on your horse? Of course, said Carlos. He got down from his horse and he helped her up onto his horse, and then he got on in front of her. She put her arms around his waist and he began to ride. At first, as they were riding, she just had her arms loosely around his waist. She seemed very tired, like maybe she had been walking for a long time, waiting for someone to pick her up. But as they rode, his horse began to ride faster and faster. He was running almost as if he thought something was chasing him. So they were going very fast, and he felt the woman's arms tight around his waist. They were getting tighter and tighter, almost crushing him. Um, Miss, could you please loosen your grip? You're crushing me. But she did not loosen her grip. She kept holding tight onto him, and her body was limp against him, almost as if a dead thing was on his back. And his horse was riding like the devil was after him. Faster and faster and tighter she gripped him. And he said, please, please, let go. And he began to remember those stories, the warnings about the hitchhiker in red who looked like a beautiful woman but was really a demon. He turned to see her face just in time to see her open her big red mouth with fangs that were glistening white in the dark. And she bit down on his neck. But because he was wearing his coat, she bit his coat instead of his neck. And he was trying to shake her off, but she would not let go. She just had a grip with her teeth and her arms, and he knew she was a demon and she was trying to steal his soul. He knew the only way he could get loose from her is to somehow get his coat off. So he unzipped his coat and he got it off of him and he threw it to the ground with that demon hitchhiker still clinging to it. He heard the bones crash onto the ground and he heard a scream, "Ah!" An inhuman cry. He looked behind and saw the demon laying there, just skeleton remains, and the head was off of the body, clinging to that coat. Well, when he got to his sister's house, he didn't dare tell them what happened. She wondered why he wasn't wearing a coat. "It's a cold night, Carlos. You should have worn a coat." He just shook his head. She just assumed he was tired from the ride. And when he came inside, he ate a hot meal and he never picked up any hitchhikers ever again.